This is Answer Me That on Storm FM, sponsored by Bar Uno.
Hello and welcome to Answer Me That on Storm FM. We're here to answer your questions that you've had throughout the week, and we've got a few hanging over from last week as well. This week we've got questions like, what's the story plot of Frozen? So spoilers if you haven't seen it yet, but I doubt you haven't. Why it may be illegal to operate your new quadcopter if you get one over Christmas. How does hair straighteners work? What's the best way to remember names of cases if you're a law student? And does dry cleaning actually use liquids? We'll probably throw in a few other questions as well. If you have any, don't forget to email studio@stormfm.com, text Storm plus your message to 60300, or go to facebook.com/stormamt.
This is Answer Me That on Storm FM. Send your questions to studio@stormfm.com, facebook.com/stormamt, or text Storm plus your message to 60300. Text charge at your standard network rate.
So our first question for today is, what actually is the story or plot of the movie Frozen? So if you haven't seen it, it's going to be quite a few spoilers for you now because we're going to talk about the film. But before we do, there is quite a lot of crossover in the film Frozen to other Disney movies. At the start, you see Elsa and her powers playing with her sister, and she gets afraid of them when she nearly kills her by hitting her in the head with whatever spell it is. It doesn't really explain properly where she gets these powers from, but she has them from birth. A little while into the introduction, Elsa and Anna's parents actually go off to attend a wedding. This wedding is actually the wedding of Rapunzel and Eugene from another Disney movie, Tangled. So there is some movie crossover. It shows the progression then through the age of how Elsa's scared to show her powers and shuts them off basically from the kingdom. When it finally comes to her coronation, she has to open the doors, and Anna starts dancing around and singing, and when that happens, you can actually see Rapunzel, Eugene and Flynn wandering past Anna as she goes out the gates singing for the first time in forever. The story then goes on to show how Anna basically wants to get the kingdom into the castle and be open and a very happy place whilst Elsa's still scared, and when her powers are revealed, she goes into exile, and it's the first time really she's happy because she gets to be herself and play with her powers and make pretty things out of ice and stuff like that. So yeah, basically the story's all about then Anna's journey to find her sister, bring her back. On the way, she falls in love with someone, I've forgotten the name. My niece probably knows it, but there you go. But she falls in love with him as they try and find her sister. Once they find her, she doesn't want to go back for obvious reasons. And there's a whole thing where she goes back, tells them, and then comes back out. And eventually Elsa agrees to go back, and everyone's happy ever after. I don't want to say too much because there are people who are either fed up with watching it continuously because they have children or unusual friends like I do who absolutely love the movie, or because they haven't watched it yet. So
this is Answer Me That on Storm FM. Send your questions to studio@stormfm.com. Facebook.com/StormAMT, or text Storm plus your message to 60300.
So our next question though is, why may it be illegal to operate your new quadcopter if you get one for Christmas? So most people just get like these quadcopters or little remote control helicopters and things like that all the time, but they don't actually think about the legal implications of it and where they're allowed to fly it, basically. If you have one of these, then you're not allowed to have a basket or anything on it, which is able to drop anything, because you're not allowed to drop anything from an aircraft, doesn't matter how high it is off the ground. And it probably goes without saying, but you must always be able to see it wherever it is, without the use of binoculars or anything like that. You must be able to see it with your own eyesight. If you wear glasses, obviously, you can use your glasses, but nothing else like to amplify your vision. Whether the aircraft is over 7 kilograms, there's also more rules about where you can fly it and things like that. Obviously, you can't fly it near an airport or anywhere where there's controlled airspace. It's probably not a good idea to fly it around Bangor most of the time, where you have the low fly-in hawks coming over all the time doing their training. If there's a camera attached to the drone, there's even more rules where you can't fly it for any surveillance work at all without permission from the CAA. So if you're recording something or trying to make a film, technically you should get permission from the Civil Aviation Authority. You have to be more than 150 meters away from a congested area if you have a camera on it, and you can't be over an assembly of 1,000 people or more, otherwise you need permission again. You also can't fly it within 50 meters of a vessel, vehicle or structure which is not under control of the pilot. You cannot be within 30 meters of a person unless, of course, you're taking off or landing and you're in control of it. Anyone else should be away from it. These are actually rules set out by the Civil Aviation Authority, and you can be heavily fined if you do disobey them and get in quite a lot of trouble. So if you get a quadcopter or have one or a helicopter, make sure you're safe with it and you stay within the legal limits. Otherwise you can get in a lot of trouble and you could potentially hurt someone as well, because some of the blades on them are made from metal as opposed to composite, like most of them are plastic. So it's important to stay safe with them and stay legal. So be careful with where you use them and how you use them.
You're listening to Answer Me That on Storm FM. Don't forget to send your questions to facebook.com/StormAMT.
Hopefully you've got all your Christmas shopping done by now, or at least most of it, and these songs aren't too depressing for you. If they are, then get online and do your shopping. Anyway, our next question is about hair straighteners and how they work. I'm not going to go into depth about the circuitry inside it, but how it works is there's an electric circuit which will heat up a ceramic plate, and there's a little thermostat inside it which will detect its heat. And when it gets to the desired temperature, either one you've set or with the cheaper ones, whatever one was set at the factory, it'll stop the electric going to the circuit until it cools down again past that temperature. It's quite simple, really. With the more expensive ones, it has two ceramic elements, but the way it works in your hair is it breaks down the hydrogen bonds in your hair, making it more flexible, so it'll break down your hair's natural composition and the way it usually looks. But if you introduce moisture, it'll go back to its, or near to its original form. Depending on how much you straighten your hair, it could damage the bonds permanently and create semi-permanent straight hair. So yeah, that's basically how hair straighteners work. There isn't much to it and not much to say on it. It's heat and it makes your hair go floppy. So yeah, tell you what, it's a bit boring today without anyone in the studio. I think I enjoyed having Maggie in here too much last week because I had someone to talk to between talking to you, and I had someone to talk back and tell me what they thought about stuff. I suppose there's not much you can say about hair straighteners really and how they work. Our next question you can get involved with just about halfway through the show, so it'll be nice to hear from you and to get your opinions on things. But our next question is, what's the best way to remember names of cases if you're a law student? As I know some of our listeners aren't law students, I'll expand it out to how do you remember names, or if you're a psychology student, how do you remember the different studies and the different numbers of participants involved and things like that. So what's the best way to improve your memory? Now there's a few schools of thought on this, so it should be interesting to hear from you. If you have something to say, get in touch with us, studio@stormfm.com. Use the nifty little form on our website, or text Storm plus your message to 60300. You can also get in touch on our Facebook page, facebook.com/StormAMT.
This is Answer Me That on Storm FM, sponsored by Bar Uno.
So our next question is quite relevant this time of year because everyone should be revising for their exams in January and should be at the end of their essays by now. I am terrible with names and remembering dates and cases, so it's quite a good one for me to actually look up as well. But it's what's the best way to remember names and cases if you're a law student, but also in general, how do you remember names? So one of the main ways people have said online they remember is by using flashcards. So they'll put the main points of each case on one side and then the name of the case on the other. probably shouldn't say this, but it's more important to remember what happened than the name of it. But if you can remember the name of it, it's better because you will get more marks in the exam. So if you try and use the flashcards, you can also try looking at the name of the case and try and remember all the points you have on the back of it, because it's best to try and revise, or I find with like bullet points and things like that. But another one which seems to be quite popular is to try and use silly stories or try and use things connected with the names. This was actually in a book, I think it was by Darren Brown or someone like that. His one was to use silly stories. So the example they gave was in Pharmaceutical Society of Great Britain against Boots Cash Chemists, 1953, was to visualize top businessman in a suit, which would stand for a high position, i.e. a pharmacist or pharmaceutical expert or something like that, at a Boots counter, trying to pay with £50 for incorrectly priced socks, and the assistant holds up 3 fingers for an extra £3. So the socks aren't necessarily that important, but the 50 and the 3 will help you try and remember that it was in 1953, whilst the rest of it is basically trying to boost your memory with the case. With the case of names in general, it's a bit more difficult, but one of the things I found good when I go to conferences and things like that, I went to one with NIAS. I think it was actually part of a consultation. And we basically, all of us stood in a big circle. I think there were about 20 of us, maybe more. And the idea was we'd say, I have been to the shop and I bought, and then you would have to say your name and an item, and the next person would have to say their name and an item, the person before them's name and an item, their item, and the item would have to be starting with the same letter as your first name. So I always remember it as Ali Apple because I'm constantly emailing her, and it's the one thing which stuck in my head. But I think another one was Kate bought a kayak. I think I bought crisps or something mundane like that. There was a Teresa, I think, who bought a tortoise. It's just having these things to associate is preferably an everyday item with a name, even if it rhymes or something like that, because it helps get it in your head better. But the same can be true with things like case names. There are some with names in it, like the Crown against Holland, and you can remember that either as Holland the country or Holland and Barrett. It's having something every day to associate with it in your head to make it a bit easier. Best way to remember things is you can try flashcards, case points one side, name on the other, or silly stories, or associating it with everyday items. The hardest part is probably going to be remembering the year, to be honest, because you can come up with rhymes and God knows what, but the year will nearly always be a bit of an oddity at the end. But as long as you remember the name and the case points, you should be fine. If you're talking to someone and trying to remember their name, just make sure you don't come up with whatever rhyme you've come up with or the daily item, because that could be a bit embarrassing if you start just calling them Apple and forgetting their real name. Could also be a bit weird if you do it in front of your friends, so yeah.
You're listening to Answer Me That on Storm FM. Don't forget to send your questions to facebook.com/StormAMT.
Well, this is our last section now. Question is, does dry cleaning use liquids? And the short answer is yes. So it does use a liquid. It's actually a solvent which breaks down the different dirt in the stain and takes it out. So it was originally discovered in 1855 when, I think it's pronounced, Jean-Baptiste Joly, a French dye works owner, noticed that his tablecloth was cleaner after he accidentally overturned a kerosene lamp, and the kerosene in it ate away at the dirt and actually cleaned it. After that, they started using gasoline instead for some reason, because they thought, why not have a flammable tablecloth? Anyway, after that, they discovered that it was the carbon tetrachloride and trichloroethene or something like that. I can't read it anyway. It was combined to become a product we know today anyway as perchloroethene. Perc anyway is called. But that's what we use today anyway. It's a solvent which is used to eat away at the dirt and make it clean. So there you go. It's only called dry cleaning because it doesn't use water like every other method of cleaning. And the way it works is still they'll inspect your clothing for any missing items, any missing buttons or any tears. They'll tag it saying what's wrong with it and with your number or wherever. Pre-treat it by looking for stains on your clothes and treating them with the dry clean solution and any stain devils and things like that. Then all the clothes go into a big machine and are cleaned with the solvent again, and then it's taken out and they will look for any more stains and things like that, and then it gets pressed and folded or wherever you've paid for and given back to you. That's basically how dry cleaning works. There's not much to that one either. I really need someone to talk to. If you do fancy coming on at all, just email studio@stormfm.com with the subject AMT, or go to the website answermethat.tk and just get in contact through there, or our Facebook page, facebook.com/stormamt, and you could come on and answer questions and suggest some music to play. So yeah. But that's it from us this week. We need your questions for next week because we don't have any left now. So get in contact with your questions, your song suggestions, and anything else. And have a good week and hopefully a good Christmas if we aren't on